The news that Gord Downie has incurable brain cancer has come as a shock to music fans, perhaps nowhere more so than in Kingston. That's the hometown of his band, the Tragically Hip. Yesterday, Mayor Brian Patterson announced that you can send well wishes in a book outside his office. The Hip have had a long and special relationship with the city. Alec Ross has followed the band's trajectory for many years. He was a music columnist with the Kingston Whig Standard in the 1990s. He's currently a writer and school trustee, but remains connected to the music scene. Alec Ross joins us on the phone now from his home in Kingston. Good morning, Alec.
Hi, good morning, Wei.
How did you hear the news about Gord Downie?
I was, like many people, I was in bed. I woke up at about 6:10 in the morning yesterday, and like many people, I reached for my phone to check my email, and I read the message that the band had sent out at only 5 minutes earlier, and so that was a very rude awakening for the day.
What were your thoughts?
Well, I think my thoughts were the same as the ones that have been echoed across the country since then. It was shock and surprise, huge sadness, because although I don't know Gord Downie personally, I do know other members of the band, and I just felt horrible for all of them, and it's just such a huge blow for them, of course, for Gord, for the band, and for their fans, but just the country, the Canadian music scene as a whole. This is a terrible, terrible news.
The band members were just in the city too last week at Queen's.
That's correct. They were awarded an honorary degree by Queen's, which is well deserved. It's largely, it's not just for their music, I believe. It's also for the huge amount of charitable work that they've done in Kingston over the years. And Gord Downie was conspicuous by his absence. Everyone was wondering, well, where is he? What's going on? But no, I don't think anyone ever expected this.
They obviously have a strong connection to Kingston because that's where they got their start. Remind me how they all met.
Well, they were all students. They grew up together. They were students at Kingston Collegiate downtown. That's where they started playing together. Initially, they had a saxophone player in 1986. Paul Langlois replaced he's a guitarist, rhythm guitarist. He replaced the saxophone player, and he lent them the sound that they later became famous for, contributed to that sound. And they played at bars at Queen's, they played at local bars here in Kingston and picked up their following. And this is sort of where they got their start and their first fan base. And that's why people have a very proprietary feel about towards the Hip, because like they're ours, But the miracle about the band and what makes them unique, I think, is someone said to me yesterday, although Kingston, they are our hometown band. Practically every city in Canada, every small town in Canada feels like the Hip is their own hometown band. That's the miracle of their music, I think. Yeah,
and over the years, how have they maintained their relationship with the city?
Gord Downie, of course, lives in Toronto now, and Johnny Fay has moved. I'm not quite sure where Johnny lives, but he used to be a neighbor of mine. He only lived a few blocks away. But Gord Sinclair, Rob Baker, and Paul Langlois still are in town, and the relationship is they are in the community, very much a presence in the community. They're not, remote rock stars who live in these, mansions and never go out and act all high and mighty or anything. These are very, very, just regular people, regular guys. They're in the community doing fundraisers. I can't count how many fundraisers they've done over the years, large and small. What I think, and I can't even imagine how much money they've raised over the years for various causes. They've, from 2004, they played a big concert at RMC, Royal Military College, called Rock the Causeway. That raised money for the Community Foundation of Greater Kingston. 5 years later, in 2009, they played a fundraiser for a fellow named Glenn Williams, a DJ who was well known as G, who was diagnosed with ALS, and he was a big booster of the Hip. And so they played this fundraising concert at the K-Rock Center. K-Rock is a local radio station which calls itself the home of the Hip. Just a couple of weeks ago, Rob Baker, the long-haired guitarist, a very distinctive look, he visited kids at a North End public school to talk about climate change and let them, check out his Tesla. These are the sorts of things that they do on a regular basis. So the connection is not just, it's more than a regular fan connection. Most of the time a fan thinks they know the performer because they love their music and they listen to the lyrics and they parse them and they gain meaning and they think they know the performer through their music and their videos, but it's a one-way connection. Here in Kingston, it's two-way because we actually do know them because we see them in the street. I bumped into Rob Baker in the parking lot of the Metro, the shopping, the grocery store just last week, and this happens all the time. And so the connections and interconnections through family, through personal friendships, through just philanthropic endeavors that people have benefited from, that the Hip have led. These connections run very deep and they're very long-standing. And so this news, it affects so many people in Kingston in a very direct and personal way.
Yeah, very personal way. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, too, that it's not just the fact that they're from there. Do you think there is something about the music that really resonates with people there?
Well, I think it's the same thing that resonates about the music that resonates with people across the country and around the world. In some cases, it's so Canadian in many respects. I mean, their biggest hits. I mean, Bob Cajun. Who writes about Bob Cajun? This little tiny town in Haliburton. Wheat Kings. That's a song about David Milgaard and 50 Mission Cap about Bill Barocco, a Toronto Maple Leafs hockey player who won the Stanley Cup for them in 1951, I believe it was, and on and on and on. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface. Their catalog is huge, and it ranges from sort of really blues infused, hard rocking stuff to very beautiful, sensitive, ballady type things. So their music really runs the gamut, and in addition to that, I mean, there's the music, but their live performances as well. Gord Downie is absolutely magnetic on stage. I mean, he's the front man. He's one of the most charismatic front men in Canadian music. He's got a very distinctive voice, and his stage presence is, you can't take your eyes off the guy. I mean, he's got this thing. He has a white handkerchief that he sort of talks to and wrestles with. I mean, you've got to see it to know what I'm talking about. He rides his microphone stand like a bronco.
Oh, you feel every word. Honestly, you feel every word. Alec, thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning.
I'm happy that you called. Thank you, Wei.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks. Alec Ross is a Kingston writer, editor, and Limestone District School Board trustee. He's also a former music columnist with the Kingston Whig Standard, longtime fan of the Tragically Hip. You can send your well wishes to Gord Downie and his family. There is a book outside Mayor Brian Patterson's office on the second floor of City Hall in Kingston.